Good evening, folks. Welcome to Marked in Time. In 1975, my brother Paul got a job in General Motors. And with his first paycheck, he went out and bought himself a Cordura Seagull dive watch. When he brought this watch home, it was packed in a container filled with water, and I fell absolutely in love with it. I was 6 years old at the time, and I begged my parents for a dive watch. I were like constantly on them. I want to watch. I want to watch. Well, one day they came home and they said, son, we got you a watch. And when I opened the box, this is what I got. A Mickey Mouse watch. I have to admit, I was a little disappointed. And it was so hard because my parents were sitting there with big smiles on their faces going, hey, look, we got you a watch. And I'm like, yay, it's a Mickey Mouse watch. But I started wearing it, and within a short time, I fell in love with this thing. Again, I was 6 years old, and I wore it everywhere. I wore it till about I was 8. And what finally did it was I did want a dive watch, and I wore it into the pool once. And that was the end of it. When I got out of the pool, she wasn't ticking anymore. I've kept this watch for a very long time. And when I started getting into watch repair, it was one of the first watches that I took apart, serviced, cleaned the rust out of it, oiled it, and got her going again. This watch is made by a company called Bradley. And Bradley was the company that took over the contract from Walt Disney to produce character watches from Timex. The watch has a Bradley Time Division Movement 37Z2. It is a one jewel movement, and like I did a previous video on the Timex from 1975, is basically the same thing. The movement is literally two plates with all the wheels in between sandwiched, and the servicing of it isn't that difficult. It's just literally just oiling the points on the main plate. And has an exposed spring, mainspring, so you can oil the mainspring. Now the service I did was a lot more detailed because of the rust, but to keep it running is not that difficult. The lug width on this watch is 16 millimeter. I have a NATO strap on it. Originally came with a red leather strap, but as I said, I did a lot of swimming with this watch. And yeah, so the leather eventually corroded off. It has a, as you can see, let me get the strap off of it. It has a brass backing on it. Look how small the little bars are on this. Yeah, there she is. She has completely brass back on it. Now I did polish this. This was originally nickel plated, but over the years it faded away, so I just kind of gave it a polishing. It is metal. It does look like it has a plastic body on it, but it is a metal body on it, and obviously chromed. The case itself is 29 millimeters, and from lug to lug 35 millimeters. I've had this watch. Yeah, it amazes me the amount of times I have moved, and it's just stayed with me, even broken. I kept on to it. I didn't know at the time that I was going to be getting into watch repair. I took it up first as a hobby, and like I said, it was one of the first ones that as soon as I started getting a little bit of skill and some confidence, I took this watch apart and started working on it. And just a lovely piece. And they still make them. I mean, there's still companies that make Mickey Mouse watches, but there's something about the ones that came out of the 70s. There are so few and far between. A lot of kids wrecked them, and they just ended up in the garbage. They weren't expensive, and they're still not. I mean, you can still pick up a vintage Mickey Mouse watch off eBay for like $80 US, about $100 Canadian. But there's so much to them. I mean, they are such a timepiece of history. And what surprises me mostly is that even with the damage, the water damage that happened inside, that the dial still, this is the original dial. I didn't even have this refinished. This is the original hands, the original Mickey Mouse. I never touched the dial, and it amazes me the craftsmanship that went into these watches back then. Like, there's nothing on it. This is like a very, very clean watch. Now I did polish the case, and like I said, I polished the brass back, but the dial is original. It's something to be said for the craftsmanship of that. I mean, considering that these were, yeah, dollar store type watches. I mean, they weren't very expensive. My parents couldn't afford a lot, and we had 5 boys in the family, and I know what it's like trying to feed a lot of children. So it's it amazes me. You know, it was not the most expensive watch around, but the quality is fantastic. Anyways, if you like this video, please like and subscribe. I'll be coming up with some more watches. I have quite the collection of different timepieces from over the generations, and some of them will be disassembled. I do repair watches and restore them, vintage watches, and sometimes I come across something really unique on the inside that I wasn't expecting. So if you like the channel, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.